BIC podcast number 80. We already did a mini show inside a show, and Edmonton has apparently scored a goal. So congrats to them for breaking their shutout and actually managed to scoring one on Florida. Even though we don't acknowledge the Stanley Cup, because as far as Brandon and I are concerned, the hockey season is over. Nonetheless, allegedly, there's a game going on. I feel it's unofficial. I feel it doesn't count for anything, but apparently there is a game going on, so we're having that.
Preseason.
So we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We've got some updates on the Fake PMG Saga. We've got some of that going on. Apparently another lawsuit in the hobby. We're more perplexed than anything else. It's very straightforward, but we'll touch on a little bit here and there. And we've got a couple of small stories. So it's going to be a more hobby-oriented episode. So we're going to spare you a lot of the hockey talk this time around. We will actually talk about cards on this episode of the BAC podcast. We thank the gazing eyes of Brett Favre for protecting us as always. We're going to talk about a couple things. So let me get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. First one, there is going to be an upcoming on June, I believe the 22nd. I'll double check the timing and I'll put a link in the description. Hobby Palooza is coming up. Generally speaking, I've had my fun with it in the past. I know. And believe it or not, they've asked us to actually participate as part of the live stream. We're going to be anchoring the Saturday. So, brace yourselves. It will be not the standard fare. One thing I can guarantee you, I don't know what it's going to be about, and I don't know exactly what we're going to do. I'm still working on it. We're still workshopping it. But here's one thing I do know. It's not just going to be an extension of Friday, because that would be silly. We're not just going to do Friday and then repeat that on Saturday. So we're going to come up with something. We'll figure it out. It might just be Eric reviewing the entire SP Signature Legends set for about 12 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, just going on forever. And maybe we won't allow Sunday to happen. Maybe we'll just keep going Saturday until, we decide it's over sometime on Monday. Who knows? That it's going to be something. It's going to be something. Link in the description to the video that does the preview, that explains everything else, gives the schedule, gives the rundown. And believe it or not, part of the reason we agreed to do it is there is a charity component to it. I believe it is Signature for Soldiers, if memory serves me. The information is included in the video as well. So believe it or not, there is a charitable thing. So any money given there is not given to Eric. Eric pays for the like button. If you give money to that, you are giving money to charity. So you can do that if you wish. So we'll definitely touch on that. One other thing we'll do, we'll also get this done right away. We want to thank AMG Collectibles and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. We'll do that right off the top, so we make sure we've got all our areas covered. We will have another episode. So if you're watching this when it comes live, a couple of hours after that, there will be the episode coming from AMG. And we've got some cool stuff that came in the store. We'll see if there's some new product that they want to talk about. There was actually so many items that I was shown for new items in the store. It might be broken up into a couple of weeks. So we'll figure out what the combination is going to be, but there's some interesting stuff. There's some memorabilia stuff and some really cool cards. So we'll definitely touch on that. But otherwise, if you're curious and you want to check it out, you can go to amgcollectibles.ca, the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. Check that out. Check out the old podcast episodes. There's a whole bunch of them for different products and a whole bunch of cool stuff that came in the store. So check that out. We thank AMG for supporting the channel and the podcast. All right. See, got all that done right away. So Eric, before I get into a couple of the topics I got in here, because believe it or not, I wrote down some of the topics. I want to touch on a few miscellaneous things. The first one. You want to tell us a little bit about your own experiences, your adventures in eBay land. No, we're going to get to the biking in a second. But before we do that, let's do adventures in eBay land first. We'll ease our way into your cycling exploits. First, eBay. So what happened with eBays?
So I purchased something on the eBays, and I've been purchasing stuff on the eBay since eBay became eBay. And I've always made sure that I've done my due diligence, and I've examined the photos the best I could, read the description, and checked to see if feedback is, more than 3. And I did that. And I purchased a Gary Unger rookie card, 1968-69 rookie card of Gary Unger, the Iron Man, before Keith Yandel and then Phil Kessel broke his record. I think that's the order. I think it was Unger, Keith Yandel, and then Kessel. I think that was the order. Anyway, he was the Iron Man of hockey for a while, and I wanted to get his rookie card. Saw this available at a fair price, and I examined the pictures, and I read everything, and I'm like, all right, cool, buy it now. And I got it today, and there is a crease going right across, and it wasn't clear to me in the pictures, and there was nothing in the description whatsoever. And I just, it's frustrating. I was running a very large eBay store for over a year, and I would make sure that I took multiple pictures of every aspect of the card, all four corners, surface. I tilt it. I make sure the light was correct. I should do the back. That's another thing that drives me nuts. A lot of times when you're buying cards on eBay, they only show you the front. So, I used to make sure that every aspect of the card was covered, and if it had any flaws, I had pictures. It was in the description. We wanted to make sure the customers got what they were expecting when they purchased it. And so I was a little disappointed when this came in the mail today, and there's a crease just going right across.
Now, we were doing the discussion in the pre-show, I think, and Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were saying that now on eBay you can do, I believe it's 24 photographs. Is that correct? The 24?
That is correct. And I don't want to give out. I was looking at eBay to see if I could see the card. Was this card from Canada, and was it under $5?
I'd have to look all that up, but no, it was more than $5.
Well, one thought I was going to say, though, since Brandon mentioned that it was 24 photos. So again, ignore this because this completely plays against my Man of Peace branding, unless you prefer my alternate branding, which is Evil Man of Peace. So my thought was, as soon as Brandon said there's 24 photos, Eric, if you had an eBay store and you just wanted to screw around, and you've got a very small dollar item like a $5 item or whatever, wouldn't it be kind of something that you could play around with if you take all 24 photographs and like keep zooming in on one specific thing, even though there's nothing wrong with it, just to see how many people are like, what's wrong with it? Why are you staring at this corner? Why are there 15 pictures of this corner from different angles? What is wrong? And everyone just stares at it and they're obsessed and they can't like figure out what's wrong, and there's literally nothing wrong.
Yeah, but I'd end up getting like 57 emails that, constantly bombarded. What's with this corner? Why do you? And I'd have to answer them all. So,
but your answer could be like, can't you see it?
Can't you see
Question
it?
mark? That's your answer. Can't you see it? Isn't it? Look, why do you think we took so many pictures? Take a look. Look at the pictures. The answer is in the picture. But I've got a 57-inch screen that's 18K, and I've done I'm watching like this Zapruder film. It's like we use every filter we've got, every photo filter. I can't figure out what's wrong. You can send it to the coaster makers, and they can't figure out what's wrong. It's terrible. It's awful. Awfulness. So this is where, again, Evil Man of Peace comes in. Hashtag Evil Man of Peace. Just the thought I had as soon as Brandon said there are 24 photos. I'm like, I could just screw with people. 24 photos, that's a lot of opportunities to just mess with folks. That's a lot.
Yeah, back when I was doing, I was in charge of the eBay store at work. The most you had was 10, and I thought 10 photos are plenty.
In general terms, I think 10 photos is plenty. The 24, if you got a lot, I can understand where 24 comes into play.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That would work really well. You got a bunch of cards to show off. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, one card. I don't need 24 photos of one card, but I would take anywhere between 5 to 10 and make sure I got all four corners, the surface, the back. I tilt it, make sure that you saw it's kind of at an angle going right down, so you could make sure that you could see that there was nothing coming off the surface. I tried to do the best job I could, and it's frustrating that I guess because I did it that way, my expectation is that other people would take an extra second to do that, and instead you get just the front of cards and the photos suck, and there's nothing in the description explaining what's right or wrong with it. So eBay is just very, very frustrating.
Unfortunate. And actually, that reminds me, we'll for this first section is going to be a couple of smaller topics. So we'll touch on a couple small. We don't have too many major big topics. We got a couple of ones, but it'll be a splattering of different ones. Now, speaking of, since we're talking about basically the upshot of what we're talking about is that Eric is not mad; he's disappointed. Now, speaking of mad and not disappointed, Eric, we got to have a little conversation because earlier today, Carlos was having lunch. He was down at the office today. He was having lunch, and he gets a bunch of text messages. And amongst the text messages are some individuals, including one individual. So we've got one mad individual who's having his childhood besmirched, but he got over it. The point is we talked about it, but we got over it. We had a discussion. We can touch on that briefly. But the other part is that someone had a horrific accident. a horrific accident, which for comedic purposes, I've decided will be a horrific stationary bike accident. So, Eric, you ran yourself, had a horrific crash in a stationary bike. Why, Eric? What did you do to yourself? Why do you keep doing yourself? And may I remind you, sir, you're old.
I am old. That's becoming more and more clear.
Mm-hmm.
I was
And
out,
fragile.
yeah, and very fragile. Things are breaking off and right. I was out for a ride with a friend on Saturday, and no, yesterday, Sunday, yesterday, and tried to go up over this rock pile, and things didn't go well. My back tire got jammed up on a root, and I went over the handlebars and landed, put my feet down with the bike between my legs, and my hands slammed into the rocks, and then the bike came up kind of like that, but the right pedal hit me with great force in the upper right calf, and I do not know if I simply have a calf bruise or something was torn, but I can't walk without crutches, and it's very frustrating because I just started biking again on the regular because of my back surgery.
Mm-hmm. I think the sad part is, so he's had a back surgery, he's had a replaced hip,
Yeah.
and this calf injury, like unfortunately, I think might put him out of the Celtics series. I don't think he's going to be available to come off the bench in the Celtics series, alas.
Yeah.
To try to get the first NBA three-pointer. This was his opportunity. This was going to be a shining moment. In tribute of Bill Walton, a great sixth man. Eric was there, and like now, because of his foolishness with his bicycle, in a stationary bike, no less. Tragic injury has now ruined any possibility of getting a wonderful Eric performance in the NBA Finals. Single tier.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can still be there to motivate them. Kind of do like a Walt Frazier kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Want to just show up, play like a minute or two, and then get pulled. Just being there and being gutsy will help them.
The name escapes me, but I don't think it was Walt Frazier, but it was a Knicks player. The name escapes me, but it was a Knicks player in this, I want to say 73. There was an infamous thing where he came off, basically the crowd cheered and everything. The last time the Knicks won anything, which is very funny.
Yeah.
But I will say this. We are 5% more mature on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But on Friday, the shackles are off. It shall be merciless. So that was but a mere appetizer, my friends. A little taste of what is to come.
I might be busy on Friday. I'm not sure.
Oh, you're not. You're not gonna be able to hobble out of that room. Those crutches might make the vanish shed, and you might not make it out of there. You might be there until Friday.
You two bozos did just encourage my wife a few minutes ago to take them and make me hobble.
We did.
And she said that she liked that idea.
Yeah, she didn't fight it or anything, did she?
Well, you understand, Eric, she's married to you, which means more than anyone else, she would understand that your pain amuses us all, including her. So you got that going for you. I think that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Pretty solid. Now, one other thing I'll touch on. So after making fun of Eric, since we did touch on the eBay thing, another thing that I think will be interesting. Again, a lot of these are going to be little mini topics, so we'll touch on this one, which I'm glad for. It looks like there has been the expansion of the basically you have to now you can activate as a seller the option to have people basically auto pay, which obviously has its drawbacks. It has its issues when you're trying to combine or whatever. But given the amount of non-paying, I as a seller, I would prefer, like, please just get it over with and just pay the thing. Especially when somebody wins, oh yeah, I'll pay like a day or two. Like if you're willing to bid on it or make an offer. The worst is when it's an offer. If it's an auction, that's one thing. But if you make an offer and then it takes you 2 days to pay, that's BS. That's really irritating. That's
right.
Like I would like the auto pay option to be honest. Like, all right, you made the offer, we accepted the offer, make the payment. All right, I ship out the card and we move on with our lives.
I think it's fantastic. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm in favor of this. Again, I guarantee there will be hangups. I guarantee there'll be some issues. But it's better than the alternative, which has been people, taking their sweet time, assuming they even pay it.
Right.
And there's been a lot of that.
No, I know there's different, there's different options. Every time I purchase something, I can have PayPal, credit card, bank account, direct, whatever. I get any number of credit cards I can have on there. So I think,
Unlimited,
yeah, I think you should.
because you're Eric.
Right, that's correct. I think you should be given, like, say 24 hours, and then eBay takes it out of your credit card and pays the person. Because sometimes I'm busy and I don't, something's, I win something at 3 a.m. I don't go and look at anything till 8 o'clock at night. It takes a while for me to get there. So, and I may want to choose my PayPal balance versus my credit card versus my bank card. However I choose to pay it, I should be able to have a reasonable amount of time to make that decision of how I'm going to pay. But after 24 hours, it's like, no, screw you. We're taking it out of your credit card that you have with us, and you're not going to screw over the seller.
I think it's going to be one of those things where I think they're going to roll it out, and I'm sure they'll get some feedback, and it may end up being a compromise solution like what you just described. But for the moment, I would rather they at least try it. I'm good with them at least giving it a try. Obviously, as I said, there will be some hangups, there will be some issues, but start off, it's better than nothing. It's better off than just letting it sit. So, and if you're a seller and you activate it, then you like to have that on, especially again, if you're making an offer on an item. This is not like an auction where it just has to end at a certain time. If you're making an offer, you can do that whenever. So if you made the offer, I expect you to pay.
Yeah.
I think they're, like, outside of just, cards and eBay itself, I think they're kind of being put into a position that they have to do the instant payment, because the live selling is becoming so popular. If you go on Whatnot right now and somebody is selling cards and you bid on a card and you happen to win, it's instantly paid. Like,
Yep.
every card is instantly paid. And Eric mentioned something about, or there, one of you mentioned something about the shipping thing. I don't know how they would handle that necessarily. With, like, Whatnot, it's within that show. The seller can do like a progressive shipping type thing or whatever. Some of the live platforms have that. I don't know how eBay is going to handle that. To be honest with you, the way I handle combined, that's easiest for me, and I find easiest for buyers. And this is for buyers out there. If you guys don't sell on eBay, understand that the simplest way to go about it is to just check out. Just, message the buyer if you want to, say, hey, do you combine, solidify that, but then just buy whatever it is you're wanting, check out, and then I will refund the buyer the difference. Like, let's say they bought 3 items and it was $5 a piece, shipping on each one, that's $15, and it only cost me like $8 to ship it. I'll give them the refund back of the difference. So I think that's the easiest way to go about it as a seller, and also easiest for the buyer, because, you're paying up front, but you're getting that money right back. So,
No, I was going to say, is to me that is the countermeasure for a decent seller. Like for me, yeah, it's an extra step, but like the combined shipping option that eBay does sometimes is clunky. Sometimes it doesn't work properly. And I've talked about this. I think Wes might have bought a couple of cards for me, and because one of them was on the ebay.ca and the other one was the ebay.com, eBay wouldn't let me connect the two, even though it's the same account. It's the same account holder, me selling it to the same person. It refused to accept that it was the same seller and the same buyer, so it wouldn't allow me to connect it anyway. So he ended up having to pay for the two things separately, and I just refunded him the difference to combine the shipping. And it's unfortunate because sometimes, on some cases, it's a little easier to list on one and the other. And by the way, you actually get the free listings. You get separate free listings of both. So sometimes it makes sense to do it. Again, if you're selling cars of the hockeys, the .ca is perfectly valid. .com works for general terms. It's fine. It works for both. But the point is that, but imagine that's eBay itself cannot reconcile its own databases, even though I, as a user, can interchangeably use both platforms and theoretically buy the same items. But if I buy it on one platform and I buy another card on another platform, even though it's the same seller, it can't accept it. So again, it's a bit clunky. In that situation, it's just easier. Yeah, just a refund. In that case, I put the shipping on one and I refunded the shipping on the other one entirely. And then we were done. No problem.
Yep.
I'll put it in one envelope and we're finished. So I don't think, I think can be a little bit of a nuisance, but the combined shipping that eBay does sometimes is a little clunky too. It does have its hangups. So nothing is perfect. Again, I think it's better than the alternative. I would rather they try this for a while. Let's see if there's some glitches and some stuff, then maybe they can work out a compromise in between. But it's better for a lot of the sellers than having a bunch of tire kickers who just go and waste everybody's time.
I will say there is a few things, and don't really want to put this out there for the masses to know this, but for those that sell, I have noticed that in some cases international, it doesn't work properly because I guess maybe the payment methods or whatever isn't cooperating with the instant payments. And there's also been instances where people are using, and you know, of course, people are always going to find a way to screw around, but you get the like prepaid cards and put those in as a number, and then obviously there's no funds available. So there's still, you can't blame eBay for it because it's just the nature of society at times, but for the most part, it works pretty well because I set everything up for instant payment when I list. And I would say 95% of the time, it if I accept an offer or, you know, whatever, it within like 5 minutes the payment's through. So it seems to be decent for what they're doing.
Sure. And like I said, I don't think anybody at eBay is legitimately expecting that they're going to be able to take care of every nuance, every edge case. And wherever there's an opportunity to cheat, somebody will. Whenever there's an opportunity to try to skirt the system, someone will try. It doesn't mean you don't try it. It doesn't mean you don't give it a go, because the potential benefits far outweigh the potential drawbacks, in my opinion. And I'd rather you give it a shot in that instance.
Speaking of the eBays, and back to Eric's Unger, did you buy a second Unger by chance?
No.
No, then this one isn't yours.
The mystery
I thought I
continues.
found
The
it.
mystery deepens. Go look for the one that involves, you know, unfortunately you can't read the username. The username would have been like, damn that root.
Well, I thought maybe I found it because there was two with the same feedback, and they were April 26th and May 9th.
If you can figure out the user account that is buying Root Killer, you know, there's like a theme, a machete, Root Killer.
Yeah. And I am thinking about going back and getting that root out of there and cutting it out, because it doesn't need to be there, because it gave me a boo-boo.
More jokes coming on Friday. Just letting go now. More jokes coming on Friday. So yes, but no, good on eBay for at least doing something, at least for now. All right, so let's talk about this one here. Fake PMG. We talked about this already a little bit. I'll give you kind of the background again. I'll link to one of the videos on the channel. I believe the YouTube channel is called Fake PMG Saga, but the high-level version of it was that there was a card that was purchased for $23,000. We talked about it on the live stream. I pointed out that there were so many red flags that, and I'm going to emphasize this up front, I still hold the buyer very responsible for a lot of the issues they created for themselves. At the end of the day, I think they're going to be made whole, but I will say that a lot of this could have been avoided with even basic due diligence. I don't think ignorance of things is really much of an excuse when it's this obvious. Obviously, given the demeanor of the buyer, it's clear to me that $23,000 for him is much the same way that hundreds of thousands of dollars is Tarek. It means nothing. Nothing. Again, hit the like button. He's paying for it. But the point is that it doesn't mean a lot to him. It really doesn't, end his world. But at the same time, though, it is still a lot of money. And when it's a lot of money, I do feel like as a buyer, yes, the card was integrated holder. Yes, there was an eBay guarantee. Maybe you didn't understand the nature of it, which I think we all agree was the case here. However, it doesn't mean you don't look at the picture. It doesn't mean, especially when you're going to make what is considered a major purchase. I think a 5-figure purchase would constitute a major purchase. Maybe, take it over to a couple of friends, someone who may be a second set of eyes, and go like, hey, isn't it supposed to say precious metal gems somewhere on there? Shouldn't there be a number on there or something? Again, even backdoor cards that don't have the numbering still have the word precious metal gems on it. There's certain telltale signs, regardless of what the label said. So I wanted to lay the foundation for that. So it appears that he did resubmit it back to Beckett. Beckett confirmed that it was in fact I guess we'll call it recolored base card, which is what I speculated on the live stream. That was what I thought it was based on the way it looked. But they've kind of confirmed that. And from Beckett's perspective, they've claimed it to be a labeling error. Now, we'll get into that here in a second. But obviously, a lot of the recourse and a lot of folks were talking about, they're like, oh, that's Beckett giving an excuse and everything. The only thing I'll say, at the end of the day, it could very well be an excuse. But I am going to point out, because I feel like I am uniquely qualified to speak on Beckett labeling issues, because I've documented it on the channel before. So I'll share the image, but at the same time, I've talked about it in the live stream multiple times, and we've talked about this before. And this is pre-pandemic, pre all of this. Beckett had an entire order of BVG cards that I submitted where they completely transposed the entire order. In effect, most of the cards in the order were mixed up. A 67 tops mantle became suddenly a 63. A 63 became a 67. But those were at least mantles. They were both mantles. The most egregious example was a 55 tops Koufax rookie. And I'll show you from one of my showcase videos on the channel previously. So there's a 56 tops Mickey Mantle. It very clearly says Mickey Mantle on the front. On the label, it says 1955 tops Sandy Koufax.
Yes.
Sandy Koufax is not Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle is not Sandy Koufax.
Are you sure?
I am quite positive. Alas, our friends at Beckett, in their infinite wisdom, again, this predates pandemic. This predates all of this. This is years ago. They clearly did not know that Mickey Mantle is not Sandy Koufax and that Sandy Koufax is not Mickey Mantle. So I have no trouble believing that the labeling department has nothing to do with the grading authentication department, and whatever they put on that piece of paper, this person did not know how to read it. So it's not shocking to me that whatever somebody put down on there could very easily have been put in wrong, because all it would have taken was somebody reading what the submitter put in. This is important. When the submitter puts in, if the submitter writes PMG, it's the grader's job to figure out what the real situation is. But if you write that down, and I'm not assuming this is what happened, but I'm just pointing out from this example, it's very clear the person putting the label in the thing is not the same person who is making the determination. Otherwise, they can't read.
So on that,
go ahead.
And we kind of discussed this pre-show. Now, label mistakes happen all the time, but I am still holding the whole thing as complete BS, because I can type in to the computer today any card that I want to. Before it hits that grading room, there is a research and ID department that takes the card and is responsible for making sure that X card matches what is said. Okay. I get that card was appeared or attempted to appear as a red PMG. However, as you stated, okay, and said, putting some blame on the buyer.
I do put some blame on the buyer.
Do you not think that Beckett employees, especially in the research and ID department, should be educated enough to also know that the damn card should say precious metal gem on it? Therefore, that label or whatever submitter submitted at that point becomes 100% irrelevant. I don't give a shit what it was put in when they submitted it. That label should have never been created to begin with.
I have a question. Your point is completely fair, but Eric, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask Brandon. I'm being serious, and just so that we're 100% clear, I'm thrilled to point out their inadequacies and their issues at any time, day or night. I will not rest until we've made fun of them from every conceivable angle. However, I am also, in the same vein, going to look at the simplest explanation, the Occam's razor concept. The simplest explanation sometimes is that, Eric, would you consider it to be fair to say that Beckett is not exactly the most sophisticated high-tech operation in this hobby. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Yes. So I have no idea what their actual process is. I don't even know if they have a process. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend they have a process. They intake the card. I'm just playing a hypothetical, so humor me for a moment. Humor me for a moment. They take the card, and somebody's job is to open the box. They open the box. They take the card from the box, and they put it over, and there's a piece of paper or, a printout or whatever, where you, the submitter, said whatever. To Brandon's point, there is a research department. That is true. Okay? And for the sake of argument, let's pretend Beckett has one. I'm going to assume they got one. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend they even did their job. But I'm also pointing out, again, a moment ago, I said, they're not necessarily a high-tech operation. Hypothetically, again, I don't know. But what if, Brandon, what if their entire thing is somebody has a sticky note? Because I could totally see this being a Beckett thing. What if they just have a sticky note that says, hey, not a PMG, this is a regular base card, lol. And they attach it to the piece of paper. And that's supposed to be your note to be like, by the way, make sure label guy, hey, label guy or label girl, make sure you don't, whatever. And somewhere along the way in their infinite, again, they take super careful care of your high valuable collectibles. So along the way, people pass along this piece of paper and the sticky note falls off. And all somebody reads is the original thing. Yeah, precious metal gems. Tick, 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 tick. All they're doing is I'm reminding you that in a lot of these things, the person who's doing this is like a minimum wage worker. They don't give a shit. If you're getting paid minimum wage and your job is to be data entry, I'm treating the label person as data entry. Their job is to type whatever is in front of them, and they're going to type that into the label and print out the label. And then they grab the label and slap it on there, and then they're not looking. Again, Mickey Mantle is not Sandy Koufax. I'm going to assume that the person who put the label on, who couldn't read the name on the front of the card,
getting labels swapped. But again, I'm going back to you.
Brandon, but I'm back to what I said.
Point with the Mantle, Koufax, all of that.
You're assuming that the label person actually saw the correct thing. You're assuming that the label. What if the label person doesn't give a shit? Yeah, precious metal gem, sure, whatever. Boom.
I'm assuming that this was a complete screw up.
I just described the complete screw up. Yes.
Yeah, it's A to Z to X, Y, and Z, a screw up, and they are using the excuse. Was it a label mistake? You're damn right. It was a label mistake. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Now, this is something we didn't discuss. And I think it is something that should potentially be looked at by all of the companies. And Eric, to be fair, I actually am a purchaser of some of these cards, but PSA recently discontinued the autograph authentication or whatever on custom cards, and
it's the encapsulation. They didn't quit the authentication. Well, they will still authenticate, but they will not encapsulate.
Right. So they're not going to put them in a slab. They're not going to make it look like whatever they're certifying, because people get confused because somehow
and some people actually take advantage of it. Just to be clear on this, some people will take advantage of the fact that it is in the encapsulated holder and pretend that it's a real card, whereas the buyer who doesn't read will be like, oh, yeah, it must be a real card.
That's my point. Yes. So with the knowledge and the amount of data and information that is out there, and the technological advances and the internet that we didn't have in the 80s and 90s, well, early 90s, with all of that at our hands now, people seem to be stumped even further. So we now have to withdraw things that are being done because they're being tricked. Are we getting to a point that maybe these companies should potentially stop encapsulating, because in their terms of services, it says that they will not encapsulate cards that have been altered or whatever? Should they start enforcing that rule to where anything that has been altered, even, if it could be an authentic card, but if it has been altered in any way, that it is no longer encapsulated? Is that the point we're getting to?
Now, I think that's an interesting one because, okay, so I'll play devil's advocate on this one. So, by the way, for the previous scenario, I was doing a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, just to be 100% transparent with y'all, I could totally see that being a thing. I could 100% be. I could imagine their great control was a sticky note, and if we find the sticky note on the floor somewhere at Beckett HQ, I will feel vindication. I'll be like,
it's on the bottom of Eric's foot, and that's why it's really what happened.
Missed
See,
it.
I was trying to
Missed
figure out how the bike pedal hit his calf, but he
Oh,
had a
the
sticky note
roots.
on the bottom of his shoe.
Roots.
His shoe slipped off the pedal and went back
Wow.
into the calf. The bike went tumbling. He blamed the root because he didn't want the hashtag exposed out there. But we're putting the pieces together. Good job on the detective work.
It's all
with the
coming
sticky
together.
note.
It's all coming together. I'm just saying the sticky note is the key. If we can figure out the sticky note, it solves the entire mystery.
That's also why he said he was going back to the woods.
To
He
burn
to
the
pick
evidence.
up the sticky note. Yep.
Yeah. It's
I'll
out
pick
there
up
on
the
the
sticky
trails.
note.
So anyway, so the point is,
I also want to point out something. Not every employee of these grading companies collect cards or know the first thing about. They are, they saw an opportunity to get a job, whether advertised locally at, somehow, and they went and applied, and they're, typing in things or, encapsulating things in a machine, which is insert, press, lift, put over here. Do not assume that the vast majority of people at these grading companies have any interest in card collecting or the products in which they're bringing in. They don't.
Eric, I took it a step further. Again, partially tongue in cheek, but also partially serious. I think we underestimate the lack of care from an employee who is doing a piece of it, effectively an assembly line, but literally their job is just to control one widget. In this example, the widget is the label. The label could say, Eric, don't put this in one of the holders, you idiot. And they put it on anyway. They're not reading what it says. They don't care. It's like, this is the fourth one. There's fourth card.
But there's a great possibility, especially at Beckett, that the person who typed in PMG doesn't know what a PMG is. I wouldn't be able to spot one in a police lineup.
And their job is not to. Their job is literally to type. That's why I said I think it's data entry. I think it's literally, what does it say on the piece of paper in front of me?
Yeah,
type that.
That's
type that.
And they don't.
Well, the other aspect
cards.
To your point of the not all of them know cards, and let's be real, there's how many thousands of different parallels and all different insert sets and everything else, right? Even people in the hobby don't know every single thing about every card, but that's realistic. But this card in particular, you would think the person would be aware of. However, let's assume and be fair that they don't, or that they have safety measures and they research every card. I would guarantee that some of their research is done with like the scan tools, the AI photo imaging, and I would almost expect that card would be identified as a red PMG because it was colored, and the AI detection on the photo wouldn't pick up that it was missing the precious metal gems because it's going to recognize it as the red tone. So it's possible that when they even identified it, that they didn't catch it if they're using these photo ID tools to capture and identify these cards. So it could have been screwed up right from the start and made it all the way through the process. And in Beckett's technical terms for the mistake, they're claiming it as an ID label error and not necessarily that. I guess you can't call it a fake card, but in essence, you can call it a fake card because it's not a PMG.
Well, I think the appropriate labeling for it. We'll come back to your question about should they even authenticate altered cards, but the correct one would have been an altered label, but for a base card, and it technically is an altered base card, which would be accurate. If it was a base card that was altered, that would be correct. That would be accurate for what's actually in that holder. The issue was the PMG part. And look, like I said, at the end of the day, I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend to know, but I'm actually envisioning a very low tech operation here. I'm envisioning a low tech operation. Like that's the reason I used the joke. I joked about a sticky note, but I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if it was something that basic, because all I'm getting at is that the research and ID department, like if any of you guys have ever seen, and the reason why I make that joke, if any of you guys have ever seen the what's it called, the Beckett card review, Beckett raw card review, they've got
Yes.
like a little thing where it's basically a sticky note, but it's got like a thing where they're like, oh, there's a defect here, and they'll put like a little X or circle it or
That's
whatever.
their grader
It's
notes. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, like a greater note thing. Well, all you'd have to imagine is you just have a little thing there where you got a little line comment. This is a base card, altered base card. And that's all you have to. But again, if the damn thing falls off, label guy doesn't give a crap. That's the point. Unless you put it in the system where you make a correction. Look, all I'll say is I've worked in organizations that you would think would be more sophisticated than what I'm just describing to you, and they'll have like an Excel spreadsheet. And to make a change, I'm just using it as an example. To make a change, all you got to do is, you got an Excel spreadsheet. You need, by the way, you found that this was an error. Okay, great. So here's column C. Under column D, you make the correction. You write whatever the correction is. Well, do you have an idea how often line 14 is wrong, but you, being too lazy, put it under line 15 or under line 13? So you make a change that has nothing to do with this thing, and the other person isn't double checking your work. They just take it as face value. They make this change here and this change here. Oh my God, that's completely wrong. Now we got to fix the fix because you just did something wrong and you compounded it. And that's on an Excel spreadsheet. At least that's electronic. At least we can go back and see who made the change that it was incorrect. We can audit it. We can actually double check that. But what if it's not quite that fancy? Again, this is the same company, and just point of order, that has had counterfeited slabs going on several years now, barely acknowledged that, and to our knowledge has never made any alteration whatsoever. Had 2 different aborted attempts to change the grading scale and to change the holder. 2 different aborted attempts. This is the same company. So why, if you can't manage to pull that off effectively, why am I supposed to believe you have a sophisticated way, even if the research ID person did their job, Brandon? Why am I supposed to assume that even if they did their job correctly, that it would have made it to the end of the line in one piece?
Aren't they also the ones, I'm trying to remember because I think it's been a couple years, but aren't they the ones that were grading and not mentioning the hand cut backdoored PMGs?
They would accept hand cut cards for many years, and backdoored stuff was allowed, and
Like people were buying the sheets.
Yeah,
they were buying the sheets, cutting them, sending them in, getting gem mints, and people were like,
so I'm back to Brandon. How much attention to so being serious here, 100% serious. How much attention to detail do you expect me to give them credit for? It is not beyond conceivable that it is not malicious. It's not even incompetence from the people that should know better did, but the people that don't give a crap, the minimum wage worker at the end of the line, just typed in whatever was put in front of him, and if whatever was put in front of him was wrong at that moment, that's what you got on the other side. Put it in the box and ship it.
I completely agree with your point, but I think even the person, I'm going to say the whole operation was screwed. Every step of that
part, on this part, we are all aligned. We all agree.
Yeah, I think they're trying to damage control by saying it was just a label correction or label mistake, whatever, which happens. All of them screw labels up. I'm not sitting here bashing them about a damn label.
Well, the thing I think is it is a label mistake. The only debatable point is at what point the mistake was made. Either the mistake was made because they didn't identify the issue, or the mistake was made because the person who made the label in the end put the original item that the submitter put on there. They just took it at face value, just typed it in as is. One of 2 things happened. Either it ended up, the end result was whatever the submitter put in is what they ended up putting on the label. Option A, in which case nobody actually looked at it properly. Or option B, someone did, but the wrong answer still arrived at the labeling station. One, A or B. But it's still a labeling issue. Technically, regardless, it's a labeling issue because it is an altered base card. As far as we can tell, the card is real, but it's not a PMG. It's a base card.
It's about 23 cents instead of 23,000.
Correct. Exactly. The issue is
Few
not the altering.
decimals.
Everyone agrees that it is altered. Everyone agrees on this point. The issue is that it should have been an altered base card that has no real value whatsoever versus a PMG that has a little more value. Little. That's the only part that there's disagreement on. But like I said, the only thing I wanted to do more than anything else, and again, I'm having more fun with it than anything else, but I just wanted to present the point that it's like maybe we're giving Beckett in some ways too much credit, but we're giving too much credit for having more sophisticated systems than maybe they actually have. Maybe it's really basic. Maybe it's very caveman system. Like it's about as basic as it gets.
Maybe they should just start taking and doing, I don't know, Father's Day card orders or something. You know, Father's Day's coming up.
I bet if you made custom Father's Day cards, that would be what a legit grader would do.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity, a market there for that. Yeah,
you can add that. You can add that
to company relevant, right?
You could add that to a line of coasters. Then you'd have 2 SKUs. You'd have 2 different SKUs. Pretty exciting stuff. Okay, so put a button on this. Let's finish off though with Brandon's topic. So we had way too much fun with with my sticky note. We got a lot of mileage out of the sticky note. All right. So, but let's bring up a valid question that Brandon brought up. Should they even authenticate a card, period, for encapsulation purposes? My only question about this, my only like pushback on it is, as a collector, I may still have some value in having the card still authenticated. The issue with not doing the encapsulation is that, okay, so, example, I had the 54 Topps Gordie Howe card. That was a card that I had in my collection. That card was trimmed, and it was very clearly trimmed. Like, it was very obvious. But I believe it was, I think PSA graded it, and they graded it as authentic, which is fair. It's a trimmed card, so that's reasonable. But the card is legit. And then I bought it as such. It was clearly labeled. I understood what the situation was. And then I ended up selling the card. And when I sold the card, it's authentic, altered. It's all there. And it's very clear what the issue is with it again. And the person who bought it as such. Clearly labeled. Nobody was fooled for a moment. Everybody understood what the situation was. Items like that, I think, still have value. A 52 mantle that somebody trimmed the top edge is still a 52 mantle. That still certainly has value to a collector who is like, hey, maybe this would be my best way to get into a 52 Topps mantle, because otherwise I may not be able to afford whatever. And the card may otherwise look perfectly good. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's still a place for it. Again, let's say it had been a legit PMG, but it was altered. Somebody like recolored the edge, put a little coloring on the edge, as opposed to like a full scale, the whole front has been messed with, but just recolored the edge just a little bit. That happens with PMGs. Absolutely. Yep. That totally happens. So, but that's still a legit card. As a collector, how many Jordan PMGs are out there? How many will actually become available for sale? That still has value to somebody who may want to be in on one.
I mean, I've showed many of them, like, the maze that we discussed last week. I always joked that the A, before SGC started putting authentic, what the alteration was on the label, which I do like that they're doing that. But I always joked that the A meant affordable. And, I would buy nice looking copies of those, and I wasn't hesitant to ever, discuss that. That was the way I went about it. So I agree with you. There is people that find value. There is people that collect. My real question was, though, are we to the point now? I mean, look what PSA had to do with the autograph thing. Are we to the point that people are trying too much crap, and is the hobby, I don't want to say uneducated. I think it's more maybe laziness.
It's 100, Brandon. So it's 100% laziness. But PSA did there in that scenario you're talking about. PSA is trying to protect itself from liability and there's no nice way to sugarcoat this. They're basically protecting themselves from idiots. They're basically sucks. They're like, there's no, from PSA's perspective, they're probably sitting there going, there is no reason we do not say it is the card in question. We literally just say the autograph is authentic. Like, we literally are making this. They're switching back over to blue labels because they're like, well, we got to make it obvious for you guys because clearly you're not getting this. Because if somebody takes a design of a real card and puts it on there. I joked before we went live. I joked with like the old bad reprints that people would list up on eBay. And one of the infamous ones was a lot of the T206 Honus Wagners. And some of them were like laughably bad. They're pathetically bad.
These are all fake. Okay. We had these made. And when these guys came in the shop to get signed, okay, even the backs look real. 70 O-Peachy. To the untrained eye and someone who doesn't know that these guys didn't have cards on the Bruins in this year, they would think, oh, those look great. And they're in mint condition because they were just made, this year. So, but these autographs are real, but the cards are not.
Yeah.
And an untrained person would have no idea. Especially since the backs are the only thing they're missing is the French variation. Even though they say O-Peachy, printed in Canada, whatever, but they're not. There's no French in the back. Actually, they don't say O-Peachy. They don't say O-Peachy.
Yeah, because they could get in trouble for that.
Yeah, they don't say O-Peachy.
Yeah. But the bottom line though is that even in the PMG Saga videos, the guy himself in the first video, he was in the first. What's funny is in the later videos, he talks up like, oh, a Saga, it's obviously a fake. And it's like, well, if it's that obvious, how come you didn't pick up on it, before you made a bid? Again, I'm putting some of the onus on the bidder here a little bit. But the point is this, is that people in the very first video, he talked about it and he was kind of justifying it from the perspective, well, maybe it's like a sample. So people will like talk themselves into a scenario where the inconsistencies are suddenly explainable. So Brandon, they go back to the conversation we had earlier. Again, I'm going to emphasize before people complain in the comments, I was half tongue in cheek playing a little devil's advocate, but also pointing out that Beckett has a track record of being very simplistic, and I can't give them credit for being a sophisticated operation. Them making a dumb mistake because of a really stupid error along the chain is not really a leap of logic here.
And in fairness to your point, it's not been long since they were still paper submission for a very long time.
So they're not on the cutting edge of high tech here. It could very easily be somebody scribbled something on a piece of paper, they got lost, and it didn't make it to the end of the line when somebody should have been reading that scribble, but it didn't get there. That's why I use the example of the little sticker note where they do the graders notes, but it's literally a little sticker. How sophisticated is that really? Like, what are we even talking about? And literally they'll circle the corner or the edge or something.
I don't know which part is worse though. I think this is a fair question on this topic. Which is worse? Let's go with in just the scenario. The sticky note or lack of communication down the line and the mistake happened, or that the card got through. Which scenario, for the sake of Beckett, is worse?
Oh, it got through would be worse, because at that point their credibility of even the fact-checking department at that point is dead in the water. Because if you can, they're better off at being a sticky note. They would be 100 times better off at being a sticky note, because then you can, let's say that your processes are flawed. They're too basic. They're too simplistic. You needed better controls. That is better than the alternative where you were just incompetent.
And that's why.
Well, the other one's incompetent too, actually. Both are incompetent, but one is incompetent to the point you literally don't know what you're doing. And the other one is you just are really stupid and can't keep track of a piece of paper.
The one is what you are paid to do, your entire operation, your grading process becomes irrelevant. The other, it's deemed just albeit significant, but it's deemed as a mistake.
Yeah, it's a clerical error at that point. A very high-end clerical error.
And that's why, personally, my opinion, that's why they went the route they did. Obviously we weren't in the building. We don't know exactly what happened, but I think they're damage controlling because, yes, they are pretty irrelevant as it is. something like this, yeah. Anyway,
Like I said, all I'm positing to you at the end of the day, I am not advocating. Eric, I don't hold a very strong opinion on what actually happened here, but I wanted to offer the scenario because, but no, I don't, because at the end of the day, I have no idea what the hell they did. all I know is that the label on is wrong. That I know definitively.
I know what they did.
Yeah.
Now
they asked you to keep an eye on the sticky note, and this is what we got out of it.
No, I'll tell you exactly what they did, and I want to make sure I say it right. They Becketted it. That's what they did.
Fair. But bottom line, just to put a button on this whole thing. Yeah, the world's most trusted, indeed. Yeah, most trusted. Yeah, that's going. By the way, quick aside, I did mention it already earlier. The labels are shit too. Just because I was saying before we recorded live that I keep listening occasionally that people will still occasionally try to invoke the vaunted name of Beckett in the past. I'm sitting there like, that's over, man. And by the way, even at the time that they were that's why I gave that example about that label swap example. That was before all of this. That was before they tried to redo the grading scale. That's before their slab was counterfeited. That was before they tried to change the holder, the label, the grading scale, before all those aborted attempts, before all of those. And they were still screwing.
Before their owner went to prison.
Before the owner went to prison. Before all of that, they were still screwing.
Maybe he took the sticky note.
I bet that's what happened.
God, it all comes together. It explains everything.
Yep.
So, but like in terms of the overall, like I have no idea what happened there. All we know is that at the end of the day, the label's wrong. And the other piece of the puzzle is that from what it appears that eBay did hold on to the money, at least based on the last, the fourth video in the series. Like I said, I'll include a link in the description to one of the videos so you can check it out. I think it's 5 videos so far. They're all pretty short videos, by the way. So you can watch the whole thing if you want and get the buyer's perspective from it. But the key is I don't absolve the buyer of responsibility here. I do think they should have done some more diligence, especially before putting down the money. That said, they should get their money back. Yes, that's right. Eric did it. They should get their money back because obviously at the end of the day, the system's failed. But regardless, they should get their money back from that. Now, the only thing, and let me pose a question then to you two, and we'll kind of finish this topic on this idea here. So let's assume eBay takes care of it, refunds the person their money, no problem. And the fact they held it in escrow, great. The seller never got the money, so they were able to take care of it, push the money back into the guy's account. Great. All's well that ends well from that perspective. Is there, in your opinions, any additional compensation due? And if so, who should be doling it out? So 2 questions. Number 1, is there anything else that should come from this in terms of compensation? And if so, which party should be doing that? That's a question I ask.
Go ahead, Eric. I'll let you go first.
My instinct is to say no. That's my first gut reaction, is to say no. If everybody's, if the gentleman got his money back, then there's no harm, no foul. If you're at the exact same spot you were at the beginning of all this, then you have nothing to complain about. If you're out of, if you have lost money, then you need to be compensated to get that money back. And if that becomes a problem, now you need to be compensated for, people call it pain and suffering, if it gets dragged out because, guy refuses to give you the money back or something, and you have to go to court and get a lawyer and have stress, that's one thing. But if eBay just hits a button at headquarters and says, all right, you get all your money back. You get to keep that card. Now it's between you and Beckett and eBay and the buyer. It has nothing more to do with this. This is between you and Beckett. Goodbye. And don't try to sell that on our platform again. That's my gut instinct.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I'm going to play a little different angle here. We know the story of guy who bought it. We don't really know who sold it. And we know Beckett and I guess eBay are squashed in the middle.
Mhm.
To your point, buyer, he should get no further compensation if he's getting his full money back, whatever. The question remains, how much money does eBay have involved in this? Like, did it go to authenticity guarantee? Whatever. Like, is there anything there? Can they go after anything? But I think a step further, it would be something interesting to know, because these scenarios happen sometimes, and this is just a 5-figure example. It's caught attention. It's a significant card. It's a notable card. But there's other instances of things like this happen. And we don't know if seller was the guy with his Crayola crowns that created the card, or did he potentially buy it from somebody else, maybe raw, sent it in to Beckett, maybe even on a consensus of Buddy A says, hey man, I'll sell you this. And he says, well, I'll buy it, but if, I want my money back if it comes back fake or whatever. These situations happen.
Sure.
We don't know the whole scenario there. Beckett does their thing. He's like, cool, got a legit one. He throws it up. We don't know all the places here. I think Beckett needs to take some responsibility on this. I know we discussed this prior to the show, and apparently they have no type of guarantees. But I think most of the companies out there, they stand by, even if it is a mistake, they stand by what they did, because their name was on that slab. And had buyer not purchased it and then questioned it, he might have, what if somebody else did it and just didn't think nothing of it and put it away in a safe, and 10 years down the road they go to pull it out and then somebody laughs and was like, you got took. They have to stand by what they did, whether it's a screw up or not, whether it's a label mistake or not. They put their name, literally, I just showed you their slab says the most trusted source of grading or whatever, right? They should be responsible. I don't care who it is. They need to be covering that card. Period.
Sure. I think that's fair. I think the reason I posed the question is just because, as I said, it's kind of the open question, because there were 3 different parties as part of it. Now, I'm not going to spend. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I say this because shit happens too often where people are trying to get things through. And if you aren't going to hold the source that is supposed to be the trusted element of this, the third party opinion,
most trusted,
and if you're not going to hold them accountable, then how are we ever going to get it to stop? I mean, people are going to continuously try this, but if they can just screw up and something else happens, and let's be real, it's a matter of numbers. If it happened now, it's likely going to happen again. Maybe not with this particular card, but something's going to happen. And believe me, all of the companies screw up. I'm not just bashing Beckett here, but they have to have accountability, or they're never going to improve. It's like, oh, we screwed up. That they got us over on that one, and not submitting to them. Yeah, sure, that's holding them accountable, but they're still supporters that are going to use them. So you're only as good as your guarantee, in my opinion. So
I agree.
I think they need to. I think they need to step up and be held accountable for it.
I think it's a fair take. I wouldn't hold my breath given the track record, but it does make a lot of sense. And I don't know at this point if they'd be able to make good on it. I don't even know what make good would look like in this instance. That's kind of the open question that I don't have an answer for. I genuinely don't. But you're right. From a confidence standpoint. And the funny thing is there's still some hangers on. That's the reason I was making reference to it. There's still some hangers on that keep talking about like the old Beckett name, the old Beckett name, the old Beckett name. I was like, the old Beckett name is dead. That is nothing. It's the past. It has nothing to do with the present. And 50,000 people will still, 50,000 cards, even though they're falling into fourth, 50,000 cards are still getting graded. So somebody's submitting cards. So I leave it to you. Good luck with your sticky note. We wish you nothing but the best. Hopefully, it continues to stick and it
Mm.
stays on the piece of paper. We can only hope. Fingers crossed for you. Fingers crossed. So yes, so we got that all covered. I'll touch on this one briefly, just because it made me laugh. I'll leave a link to the Paul Lesko X tweet, if you will, but I'll touch on it briefly. So, and I think we'll have a chance to talk about this more later. Apparently, Ultra Pro is suing BCW, another lawsuit in the hobby, as seems to be the way. But apparently, part of this stems around the terms penny sleeve and top loader, which is interesting. And obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And I don't know what the basis of this particular lawsuit really comes down to. We know the particulars because of what I just said, but the basis of it, why? My big question really that I had, and we were discussing before, is why now? And so first, why now? Why specifically right now? Why BCW only? Because obviously it is a pretty common term. And in that same vein, it is a really common term. It's a ubiquitous term at this point in the hobby when you're talking about penny sleeves. In fact, a lot of times penny sleeves aren't even a penny anymore. but it is a term that fit at the time, and it's become so ubiquitous. It's like Kleenex. In a lot of ways, the penny sleeve term is like Kleenex. Yes, there is a Kleenex brand, but when I say Kleenex, you know what I'm saying. Even if it's some, your house brand that's called something else, they're facial tissues. But I can say they're your facial tissues. But if I say Kleenex to Eric, he knows what I'm talking about. If I say Kleenex to Brandon, he knows what I'm talking about. And it doesn't have to say Kleenex on the box. So the term now means something.
If you said, if we were hanging out and you said, hey, could you grab me a facial tissue? I'd be like, what the hell did you just say?
No, your response would be like the aloe or the regular version.
Yeah.
You'd have multiple choices.
I'd be like, I don't think I want to talk to you anymore. I think you're a wacko.
First of all, you would offer the multiple options, and then you would offer us, a special meal with Dijon mustards and the fanciest mayos, the fanciest.
Oh, all the flavors.
The fanciest, of course.
Fanciest, yes.
You are not bougie
in this hobby, though. Like, seriously.
But Brandon, that is actually the part that is perplexing me. So I'm actually fascinated by this. I want to know what the backstory is, because I don't think it's as simple as penny sleeves and top loaders, because there's no way that at this point in the game,
it's petty. It's too petty.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, and by the way, they're not the only ones that use that term. The term is so generic in the hobby now that it's like you can't claim to own it at this stage. Like it's gone too far. There's just too many, and even there's a couple little boutique niche, brands that have penny sleeves, top loaders, semi-rated holders. In Canada we have the George Larocque holders. Big George Larocque. He's former hockey player, former enforcer, but he's got his own brand of holders.
Superior fits in Canada.
There you go. So, but the point is that like holders are kind of ubiquitous, especially when the pandemic was happening and people were looking, supplies were low, couldn't find Ultra Pro, couldn't find BCW. You were like, look, we take what we get. Beckett Shield, even though we made fun of Beckett like for an entire hour,
but they've got a brand. Product.
But I agree. That's what I was going to say.
That's their best product.
If there's anything holding up the Beckett name, it is Beckett Shield. I can vouch for Beckett Shield. It's pretty decent stuff. Pretty decent. I've had very little issue with it. It is legitimately their best product that they have at this stage. So, but you've got all this stuff. It's like, but why specifically are you targeting BCW? Why are these the items that you're suddenly targeting? Like, are you going to target 9 pocket pages? Are 1 touches, on the menu for the subsequent? Because again, they're so generic at this point. Like most of the manufacturers that do them have those. And if I say penny sleeves at the local card shop, they're not necessarily handing me Ultra Pro. It's whatever they got.
Nope.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why I use the Kleenex example. Like if I say, you know what I'm saying. So, but you'll hand me whatever it is you've got. You've got a couple of options.
So here's a company called I think. Let me make sure I get it right. I think
they send free stuff all the time. Yeah.
Humongous is the name of this company, and
they have good product too.
Yeah, soft sleeves, they're calling them.
Well, that's the
But
thing.
fits 3x4 top loaders.
Yeah, but so look
Ultra
to our
Pro
point
doesn't
here.
say anything about Penny.
Agreed, but that's what Brandon. But that's the reason why I'm making this point. None of those packages say penny sleeves on the front. None of them do. However, if I walk into Eric's card shop, if I walk into one of my card shops here, if I walk into a gaming store, it doesn't even have to be a card shop per se. It's just a gaming store that maybe does Magic and Pokemon and all that. But guess what, Eric? If I walk into that store and I say, "Hey guys, do you have any penny sleeves?" Yep, here you go. We got this one, this one, this one. They don't even
What the
question
hell
it.
are you supposed to call a top loader?
That's what I'm saying. So, it's like a universal language at this point. It's such a generic hobby term that I could walk into any stocked card shop in this or any other country that has it. If they understand the English language and I say penny sleeve or top loader, they'll hand me a pack. The brand I won't know necessarily off the top of my head. I may know, and they may have multiple options. They may be able to be like, I can give you a BCW one or an Ultra Pro one, or I can give you this other brand. Here you go. 3 different prices. Pick one. I'll take one of those. Thank you. Great. And that's why I just the thing that stuck out to me is that it just felt so random and so odd. That's the thing. So random and so odd. That's the part I couldn't get my head around because I don't understand why. Why now and why this specific hill to die on right now with BCW? Does that make sense, Eric?
Absolutely. It is utterly ridiculous. It does not make any sense. These are generic terms. I just, it just doesn't make any sense.
That's why I say I secretly hope there's some weird backstory to it. I want there to be some weird backstory to it because I want to know.
Because there's nobody in the hobby at card shows, you know, when there's hundreds and then there's larger shows with thousands of people are walking around having this discussion. You know, what do you call this item? Or can you grab me a penny sleeve? Excuse me, sir. They're not called penny sleeves unless they're made by this company. If you would like a soft sleeve, I will gladly sell you something. I mean, this doesn't happen. So this is made up in somebody's head. Obviously, there's money involved somewhere, or there's some kind of pettiness between two companies, and one wants to really mess with the other one. I really don't know.
I have to assume that's the case because otherwise, like I said, if they wanted to pursue that, they're going to have to sue a lot of manufacturers that are making the same type of product because it's not unique to BCW. They're not the only ones. So it's like you plan to go after every little shop that creates some of these as well because there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
So it just feels weird. I feel like there's some backstory we don't understand or that we don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm genuinely curious, especially given how random it is.
Yeah, I am curious if I could ask some people that might have some more information on that, and maybe I can get back to you on Friday if somehow I can get some insight.
We're gonna have to do some hashtag research. We're gonna have to do some findings, find out. So a couple of things then to wind down on. We'll save a couple of topics that we can touch on a little bit more on Friday. I will remind again, since I did it at the beginning of the episode, I'll do it at the end of the episode. And I will mention it on the live streams leading up to it since we're getting closer to it. It's less than 2 weeks away, so you'll only hear about it a little while longer and then it'll be done. Link in the description. I already talked about the Hobby Palooza thing. That'll be coming up. We'll be on the Saturday in the evening. We'll be at the 10 p.m. Eastern slot. That'll be where we're going to be. How long it's going to go? No idea. It's definitely going to go more than an hour. We're not going to stop at an hour. Like I said, it might just be Eric reading the phone book. Maybe that's what we do.
I plan on going to the library Saturday morning, and I'm going to take out the well-known novel War and Peace.
Excellent.
It's
culture.
It's slightly lengthy for those who may not know. I should be able to read it aloud to the audience in no less than 10 hours.
I love it. See, I like it, but I got to be honest with you, Eric. You know what? If I have an alternative suggestion, which would also be very appropriate. 100 Years of Solitude.
Okay.
I'm just saying. I've read it. It'll feel like 10 hours. I don't know if it'll take you 10 hours to read it. You don't feel like it took 10 hours to read it. Just take my word for it. I have read 100 Years of Solitude, and it'll feel like 10 hours to read it. Quite the
So
special thing.
I said I was over this, and I didn't want to bring it up in the beginning. But I
100
feel,
Years of Solitude did it for you? 100 Years of Solitude did it for you?
feel that I do need to get it off my chest publicly, just to say I hate Facebook Marketplace.
Yes.
All right.
And I don't
All right,
mean
Brandon, I will allow it. Brandon, I will allow it, but only if, and I'm going to find the picture. I am going to show the image while you explain this. So
yes,
go on.
because
Keep
people
talking.
will appreciate it.
I will find the image and I will talk. Keep talking. Keep talking. I will get the image pulled up.
So I'm not talking about selling stuff. I never really have problems selling anything on there. When I don't sell a lot on there, but when I do, I never have problems. But I absolutely hate trying to buy anything on there. And this morning, it really pissed me off because I found what many would say is a grail, and many others would say, like Eric, what the hell is that thing? It also was something from my wee childhood, not, cards or anything like that. It was a stuffed animal, okay? But when you see this stuffed animal on your screen, and for those listening, it is a freaking My Pet Monster football version, okay? I know y'all remember this from your childhood, and to make matters worse, they don't pop up often. And when they do pop up, this particular model, he would be missing his helmet, he would be missing his handcuffs, his hands and his feet would be peeling, probably the jersey would be gone, and probably would be dirty. This example is in the box. Looks brand new. So I messaged the guy, expecting it to be pretty pricey. He messages me back and says he's asking $300. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, except they normally go in this condition for about $1,200 to $1,800. So I was very excited, and I was buying this for myself. So I said, okay, in your listing, you said you have other things. What else do you got? He's like, everything else I have is listed. So I take a quick glance at his listings. He had some Tron figures. They were still in the package. Package was a little beat up, but I messaged back and I said, how much on the Tron? I'm interested in those, and I definitely for sure want the My Pet Monster. I waited a few minutes, no response. I messaged again. Hey, when you get a chance, let me know how much on Tron. I want My Pet Monster for sure. Also, where are you located? Thank you. I get a message back. $400 for the Tron. I instantly reply right back, and I said, how about $600 for everything? Just make the Trons 100 even each. I'll pay you $600 for all of it. I get a message back. My Pet Monster just sold. Wait, I literally told you multiple freaking times I wanted My Pet Monster. And I was just negotiating on the Trons because I was going to be making a trip to get these items. I thought, all right, let's try to add a little bit to it to make it worth even more of the trip. But if he said no on those, I still wanted that. How in the hell did it just sell when I said multiple times that I wanted it? So then he's like, yeah, I'll do 300 on the Tron. I told him straight up, never mind, screw it. I did, the item I really wanted was the one that you say is sold now. I'm not driving there to get the Tron figures. Screw you, guy. I'm not giving you the 300 for them now. You lost the sale. And I'll be quite honest. I could have sold those Trons for a lot more than he was asking. But that wasn't the point. I wanted the damn My Pet Monster. I had the regular one. I had the football one as a kid. Again, I don't see them. I go and find a lot of cool shit out there when I'm at sales and stuff. And that is just something you don't find, especially in that condition. I was excited to get it. I was going to keep it. As silly as it sounds, $300 for a damn stuffed animal, I know. But I knew it was worth a lot more than that. And if I wanted to sell it, I knew what it would bring. People just
So,
piss me
so
off
that
on
so
that.
that story actually is the one that precipitated Eric giving us his sordid tale of an indoor bicycling accident. As I said, very indoor. The route was indoor too, which made it very awkward, very odd.
Yeah.
It attacked him probably. It lunged at him more than likely. But my only thought, and I feel that the takeaway, I'm glad that Brandon was able to get that off his chest. He thought that he had gotten over it, but it all came bubbling back to the surface. It came back.
No, it pissed me off. I was really
Get
pissed
over it.
off.
We know that's it. That was the first comment today that precipitated a flurry of activity at the lunch hour. Well, and I must tell you, gentlemen, I speak truth here. You entertained me greatly while I enjoyed my lunch. My lunch was tremendous, but I must tell you, the salt you added to my lunch, delicious.
Good.
My sodium content was fully taken care of. I do appreciate it. Now, I was going to say, as a quick lesson here, though, I think word to the wise, and it was ironic that Brandon brought this up since the Burrell spoke of such glowing praise in the Facebook Marketplace. I have had some success on it in the past, but it was very funny that given the week that we talked about the Facebook Marketplace, Brandon had his counter to the Burrell story. I will say though, the lesson here, and this is for the people on the visual version. Sometimes it's nice to bundle things, and sometimes you just when you get the thing and you're talking about the thing before you even worry about the second thing, maybe you just send the meme. Shut up and take my money.
Yeah,
and then you can add something else.
Pissed me off. Is I had said I for sure want the My Pet Monster. I was just asking about the other things.
No, but Brandon,
just to see where he was at.
I'm being serious. I'm serious. I've actually done this with a bundle deal, which ended up being a bundle deal. I've done this with a bundle, legit. I had the main item I wanted. I said right up front, all right, what do you want for this item? We do, even if we had to do a negotiation, whatever. We're talking about the one thing. I know I might want the other thing. But I said, all right, let's get a number figured out on this one. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, deal, done. I will take that thing. Done. All right, by the way, I'm also interested in this other thing. Can we bundle the two? But this one. So we already have the number. We have the deal done. PayPal, this thing. I have already done the deal. Like I'm only going to buy one thing. I go, by the way, how much do you want for that other thing as well? Like, I'll take it if you like. And I already had the deal done for the first thing, right down to the payment options. Like we were done. We were down that road. And then or send them the meme. Or send the meme, man. Send the meme.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like I wasn't even negotiating on the My Pet Monster. I was cool with 300. Yeah. I was negotiating on the Tron, and that means you need to send the meme. It pissed me off. But anyway, this isn't the first time it's happened. It's not the first time it's happened to me on there, and quite honestly, it's usually stuff I'm looking to flip. And I'll message the person will give me a number. I'll message say, hey, okay, I'll take it, and then they'll be like, oh, it just sold. And my wife's actually wondered because our Facebook isn't my personal name; it's our the Bobbles and Ball Cards name. If that's not part of it, but it's just annoying. Like I don't know. When I was selling those comic books, I had I don't know how many people messaging me, and I made sure to say, look, I got 4 people scheduled already to come. I don't know if any of those are going to buy them, but you're 5th in line. And I would just tell everybody what place they were in order, and just kind of put it out there. Hey, there's other people interested. This is where you're at. And it actually didn't even sell to the first person. The second person bought them because the first person came, looked, decided they didn't want them. So I don't know. I guess it's just the way the things are handled on there sometimes. And also, you would think if somebody has somebody interested in multiple items, that you would want to kind of focus on that deal, because then you're selling multiple things. But
what you're talking about is bad selling etiquette. It's a lot of amateur sellers who don't understand the value of doing a nice bundle deal, because if you do a nice, by the way, again, your mileage may vary in the Facebook deal, not just Facebook Marketplace, Facebook type deals on Facebook groups as well and stuff like that. Sometimes I've ended up buying multiple items from that person over time, because then we do a deal, everything's good, nice and easy, no mess.
They know they got good buyer.
And then later they're like, hey, I got this other thing. Would you be interested in this other one? And I go, yeah, I'll take that too. What do you want to do for that one? It's like, that's fine. So Eric, I think that the whole time though, that we were kind of having this conversation, I think the feeling that I got from us listening to Brandon explain this on text was something to the vein of this.
Yeah.
I think, and for those of you who have the visual version, you if you know, you know. If you know, you know. Scream. I want it. I'm not willing to do the shut up and take my money at the price point they want on it, but I got to be honest, I kind of want it.
No, that's
Oh,
that
I told
is-
you should get it.
no, it's a little more.
Yeah, but they're asking for $250 for it. It's too high.
It's a
Ooh.
little.
I'd have to knock it down a lot. Like we're not in the same ballpark right now.
Yeah, that's
for the novelty, for the jokes, for the lulls, it has value, no doubt. But
Yeah.
we got to knock that way, sir. We're not in the same conversation right now.
No.
We're gonna need to knock that way.
Yeah, you
down.
could get a lot nicer farm stuff at that
Yes,
price.
yes. We got to do. But I love it. I love the concept. Love the idea. I could even live with the shaky auto if the price was right. I'd be like, you know what? Screw it. Who cares? Whatever. I just love it. But I'm like $250. Nah. I'll let it sit. We'll see. Maybe if it sits long enough, maybe they'll reconsider and bring it down, and I can offer something. But for now, we'll leave it be. We'll leave it be. It's not going to be my Reggie Lemon. I must resist. resist.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, that one's a little more sophisticated because it has some, classical artwork on it, but it's only slightly as bad as a giant angry leprechaun trying to eat Reggie Lemlin on a card.
It does lack the gigantic leprechaun, yes.
It's in the same category, but the Reggie one is worse.
Mm-hmm.
But
like I said, we classed it up like with that, with the art. We classed it up and we elevated it up to the level of multiple facial tissue options and fancy Dijon mustards.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
It's
definitely a thing. And on that bombshell, I think that is a valid episode. There are other topics we could touch on, but I think we'll leave something for Friday. There are more videos coming up on the channel. There are live streams on Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And as I said, in a couple of weeks, there will be 2 live streams, a very special edition. One of them is for charity. A lot of times, if you watch a lot of it, it does feel very charitable. But it will actually be for charity, for an actual charity. Truth. So we'll talk more about it as we get closer to that. So hopefully 80 episodes of the regular podcast. So love that. Very exciting. And like I said, we'll enjoy a little bit more in the summer. By the way, I don't know if it's going to come into play, and I'm still kicking around the idea. The very same weekend as Hobby Palooza, there is one of those CSC card shows. And I kind of want to go, and it'd be kind of fun to have a little show report. Like I said, I'm still working out what that episode's going to be about, but I could go to the show and then come back in time to do that episode. So I don't know. Maybe I will. Who knows? We'll figure something out. Otherwise, like I said, we'll get Eric to read 100 Years of Solitude. Okay. You'll all be much more cultured. You'll be very excited. You'll be able to properly appreciate the card that I showed you a little earlier. Or fancy the mustards.
I did look up that the audio version of War and Peace is 60 hours long.
Of course it is. Yes. It's a long-ass book. It takes a long time
so,
to get there. Yes.
I'm in. I'm willing to do it. With factoring in a couple of bathroom breaks, I'm in.
I think though, if you accidentally stutter over something, you should just start from the beginning. Just restart.
I'm in. If it's for charity, I'm in.
It'll become Hobby Palooza 2025. By the time you finish, it'll be the 2025 edition.
Eric's going to turn into Mr. Beast before you know it.
Oh, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be sensational.
What was that video, that stupid video he did, like counting or something? I don't remember what it was. He read something. He read a book or something on there.
Hey,
it was one of his most famous videos a long time ago.
I've heard the name. I know he's a big YouTube sensation. I know he's got plenty of people and money, but he means nothing to me. I don't.
He would if he randomly threw a brick of cash at you. That was one of the deals. He'd give away cash for random things. So maybe if you read him some War and Peace, he'd throw some money at you.
Well, then I'm willing.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Anyway, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you all for checking this one out. Appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed. This was predominantly a hobby-related episode. So hopefully you enjoyed it. We did talk hobby topics for the most part, and we spared you the hockeys. By the way, what ended up being? There's what's the score? Do we have any update here at the front?
It's 1-1, third period starting in just a few moments.
There you go. So those of you who check it out, by the time you listen to this, the result will be in. It will either be 2-0 for the Flow Riders, or Edmonton will tie it up and make it 1-1. We'll see. It's still in doubt. There's still 20 minutes left of the hockeys to be determined.
Go Florida.
Brandon, Bobbles and Ball cards, and he is a known associate of 540 Flips. So there is another YouTube channel you can check out there as well. So you got that going for you. Eric Sanderson d'Or, you can go there and, like I said, give all your feedback, give your comments, give your tips on how to cook with fancy Dijon mustards, and you can talk to him about the intricacies of War and Peace and or facial tissues. Eric is quite the connoisseur. Big time on facial tissues. Very true. Subject matter expert. I think that's a great use of your social media profile. That, or you can get some tips from him on how to operate a sticky note in proper, in a proper assembly line format. Something to think about. Yep. Anyway, so that'll be it for us. Thanks very much, and we will catch you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.